Udah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we are going to discuss about 16 course video related to language art. But before that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Naziratun Ulfa, and I am as the first speaker and also the moderator for today's discussion. And I would also introduce the members of Group 1, which involved in this discussion. They are Liana Radeng, Jud Nurul Akmal, Fahmi Hanifa, Farah Diana, Mary Miranda, and Fatima. Okay, let's get started. I will explain first about the science of language. So, as we know, language is an essential thing in life. Language basically is a tool or means of communication between people. Language too is one of the characteristics that distinguishes humans from other creatures. This is because humans have the ability to think and the ability to develop their mind. With that kind of ability, humans develop a tool to communicate, to express their thoughts, feelings, or desires, that is language. However, sometimes we forget how amazing gift it is to have language in our life. It makes many scientists wonder, where do we get language? How does it evolve? How come language came to us naturally? It is still the main phenomenon in the science of language. And also, we can achieve great things in life because we are able in exchanging information and knowledge through interaction, which involve language, of course. Furthermore, language is a complicated science. It includes the study of how language itself works, including grammar, the assembly of words, phrases, and sentences; phonology, the study of sound; semantics, the study of meaning; pragmatics, the study of the use of language in conversation. Scientists also study how language processed in real life, include psycholinguistics, study how it is processed in real time; the study of language acquisition, how it is acquired by children; neurolinguistics, how it is computed in the brain. However, it is still questionable what language is actually. So, can anyone give their opinion related to this question? What is language? Anyone? Maybe Farah, can you explain to us what is language in your opinion? We cannot hear you, Farah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Kak Nazira. I will continue the presentation. First, let me define what language is. A language is a structured system of communication used by human. Language consists of spoken sounds in spoken languages or written elements in written languages. Additionally, a language may consist of other symbolic elements like hand gestures in sign languages. In 1994, Steven Pinker has written a book named The Language Instinct. It is written for a general audience. Pinker argues that humans are born with an innate capacity for language. He deals sympathetically with Noam Chomsky, claims that all human language shows evidence of a universal grammar, but dissents from Chomsky's skepticism that evolutionary theory can explain the human language instinct. He also criticized a number of common ideas about language. For example, that children must be taught to use it, that most people's grammar is poor, that the quality of language is steadily declining, that the kind of linguistic facilities that a language provides. For example, some languages have words to describe light and dark, but no words for color. Um, but no words for colors that have heavy influence on a person's possible range of thoughts, and that non-human animals have been taught language also. He also sees that language as an ability unique to humans, produced by evolution to solve the specific problem of communication among social hunter-gatherers. And next, maybe any addition regarding to the definition of language, guys? Do you have any opinion?
So Farah,
Yes.
in Course video, it relates the between language and thought. Can you explain more about language and thought?
Language and
Thought. Is
thought.
there
Okay.
any relationship between language and thought?
Yes, of course. Uh, well, there are three other things that are closely related to language. One of them is written language, unlike spoken language, which is found in all human cultures throughout history. Um, and alphabetic writing, where each mark on the page stands for a vowel or a consonant, appears to have been invented only once in all of human history. And also, um, this is a tense difference that can be made in English that is not made in standard English. One of many examples in which that the dialect have their own set of rules, and it just has as sophisticated and complex as the one in the standard language. And it is not to confuse the language with its thought. Many people report that they think in language, but commune of psychologists have shown that there are many kinds of thought that don't actually take place in the form of sentences. What do you think, Ms. Naziratun Ulfa and the other participants?
Okay, I think that that's pretty clear. Anyone want to add Farah explanation maybe regarding to what her explanation is?
Yes, the next topic, I think evidence language is not thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you already explained
Oh,
it.
I already explained about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Next topic.
Yes, next
Okay.
topic is about the language work, right?
Oh yeah,
As we
how does language work?
it's okay. Maybe it's continue from Farah explained just now. Okay, so the language about the language works. As we know that the language will work through the sentences and words that we use in our communication. Okay, so to make the words or to make the sentences, they have the rules, right? For example, the rules that we use to make the language to be more complex, we use the rule of syntax or the morphology, the rules that to assemble bits of words like prefixes and suffixes to be more complex words. So the words itself, okay, they have a symbol and also have the specification of the sound and the specification of the meaning. So, Prof. Steven, right? He gave the example of the word duck. Okay, he said that the word duck doesn't look like a duck, or walk like a duck, or quack like a duck, but he can use it to get us to think the thought of a duck, because all of us at some point in our lives have memorized that brute force association between that sound and that meaning, which means that it has to be stored in memory in some format. And in a very simplified form, an entry in the mental lexicon. Yes, and then the topic of the rules, it has been mentioned three insights in the video. Okay, the first one, um, Chomsky mentioned that the main puzzle that we have to explain in understanding language is creativity, the ability to produce and understand new sentences. So when we know a language, we haven't just memorized the sentence, but we will also think about the grammar, right? And then the language have a syntax which cannot be identified with their meaning. For example, as Stephen gave, okay, he says, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. This is the sentence. We might understand each word, but the sentence it's difficult to understand. Do you agree? Colorless
Yes.
green ideas, colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Maybe we think that it seems meaningless, but for English speaker, uh, they know they can recognize that this sentence they use the patterns of the syntax that have the complex sentence. They have the meaning, but just difficult to identify. Okay? And then the syntax doesn't consist of a string of word by word. Um, the language in general has long distance dependency. The word in one position in a sentence can dictate the choice of the word several positions. So sometimes it's hard to understand if the sentence have long sentences, right? And because the reader or listener has the short-term memory while they are trying to understand. Like when we watch the video of Stephen, we do not understand clearly in one time, right? Because he speaks fast and also he used the long sentences. So because as he said, because the reader has short-term memory, why try to understand? That's how the language works. That's all for my topics. Anyone want to add?
Yes, so Russ preview last, I heard about Noah Chomsky. It is Nazira or Farah? So I want to know about the contribution of Chomsky. Maybe it is related to Bro Fahmi explanation.
It's related to my turn.
Yes, can you explain it, Bang?
Could you repeat your question, please?
The contribution of Chomsky.
All right. As you may know, Chomsky is the father of modern linguistics. He has made a significant changes to linguistics. A lot of contributions he has made for the development of languages in the Department of Languages. So the point is, the essence of language is phrase structure rules. Uh, he means that language use phrase structure rules. It allows the language, the rules allows the language for open-ended creativity. And then the second benefits of rules of structure, it allows for expression of unfamiliar meaning. As you may have watched from Steven Pinker's video, he explains that there is a cliche in journalism, for example, that when a dog bites a man, that isn't news, but when a man bites a dog, that's news. So from this sentence, uh, structure allows us to make news by by uh, by overturning or by changing the subject and the object. And the benefits of rules, they allow for production of vast numbers of combinations. As Noam Chomsky has written in a lot of his books, no one lives for an infinite number of years, and therefore no one can show of their ability to understand an infinite number of sentences. It means that we as an adult, we understand a lot of uh, complex sentences, but we don't have time to make all of sentences or to speak all of these sentences. So there is a claim to a world's longest sentence uh, written by a novelist, William Faulkner. It has 1,300 words. So the words uh, from this claim that from Guinness World Book of Record, you may know that this claim is not not a good idea for anyone. Anyone can make the longest sentence in the world by adding clauses to and then clauses, endless of clauses can make an infinite number of sentences, uh, an infinite num an infinite number of words in a single sentence. And then what Chomsky also mentioned is from these rules, you can also misinterpret a sentence, uh, like an ambiguous sentence, like from a TV guide. On tonight's program, Conan will discuss sex with Dr. Ruth. So uh, when you rearrange this sentence, it can have ambiguous meaning, like Conan will discuss, and then the second line is sex with Dr. Ruth. So this is one of the contribution of Chomsky related to rules and in a language can allow for vast number of combinations. And then children are hardwired or pre-wired with universal grammar. Chomsky mentioned that uh, to the science of language is the focus of language acquisition by children. Children cannot memorize sentences because knowledge of language is just one long list of memorized sentences, but somehow they must distill out or abstract out the meaning of the sentence. So children are not children who are children cannot speak a language, but they learn from their parent or adults, but they can create sentences from unheard from adults. Like a child might say more outside, meaning that take them more outside or let them stay outside. A child simply memorize by rote or by they simply memorize a sentence or a word by memory. Like for example, all gone sticky. It means after they wash their hand from a jam, they combine word by word. They memorize from their parents or adults. And then another contribution of Chomsky is related to children. They tend to make generalization of past tense of a verb that used that these words should use, like we holded the baby rabbits, or he tear the paper and then he sticked it. The children overgeneralize it by making these verbs uh, become past tense by adding ed at the end. But according to Chomsky, this is why children are hardwired with universal grammar. It's easy to get children to flaunt their ability to apply these rules productively in a laboratory called the WAC test. You bring a kid to a lab and then show them a picture of a bird. This is a WAC, and then you add another bird into the picture, and then the children simply say two WACs, just adding To make it plural, just add s. And famously, Chomsky claimed that children solve the problem of language acquisition by having the general design of language already wired into them as a form of universal grammar. And then Chomsky also stated in his books, poverty of input, uh, children are use structure-dependent rules. Uh, it means that if you look at what goes into the ears of a child and look at the talent they end up with as adults, uh, children usually children use word by word linear rule rather than structure dependent rules. How the question rule works, according to Chomsky, uh, for children, such sentences like "the man is here," and the corresponding question, "is the man here?" Uh, using word by word linear rule by uh, by moving the to be is to the front of the sentence. And then a child getting that kind of input could posit two different kinds of rules, like I said before. Another is structure dependent rule, like in a sentence, the man who is tall is in the room. But how is the child supposed to learn that? How did all of us end up with the correct structure dependent rule rather than word by word linear rule? We all grow up into adults who unconsciously use the structure dependent rule rather than the word by word rule. Moreover, children don't make errors like is the man who is tall in the room? Uh, is the man who tall is in the room? As soon as they begin to form complex sentences or questions, they use the structure dependent rule. And that Chomsky also argues is evidence of structure dependent rules are part of the definition of universal grammar that children are born with. Then, Chomsky is not, although many people claim that, flaunt that Chomsky is the father of, the father of modern linguistics. Not all linguists agree with Chomsky. So there are some critics uh, of Chomsky, like a universal grammar, uh, according to other linguists, is not necessarily specific to a language, because Chomsky, uh, he he doesn't speak or learn or understand all 6,000 languages in the world. He only understand or learned about tens of languages probably, but his claim about universal grammar, uh, what I say is his claim has not been uh, agreed by all linguists in the world. And then other learning models might disprove the theory of universal grammar, according to other linguists. I think that's all my explanation regarding Chomsky's contribution of Chomsky, Noam Chomsky, and the critics for him. If you have any addition or questions, please.
Okay, so Bro Fahmi, you said that language is an open-ended creativity. So it means that we can create our own sentences. Is that what you mean? I mean, Chomsky said that, and you just explained that. Is that what means language is an open-ended creativity?
Yes, what I said before, according to Chomsky, uh, Chomsky said that rules, it means like structured rules like grammar, it allows for open-ended creativity. You can make uh, a lot of sentences using structure rules, using grammar.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you, Bro Fahmi. And then we move to the next topic about phonology. Anyone wants to explain about phonology? Okay, the time is yours.
Another component of language covers the sound pattern of language, the way that the vowel and consonant can be assembled into the minimal unit that go into words. Phonology, as this branch of linguistics is called, consists of formation rules that capture what is a possible word in a language according to formation rules that capture what is a possible word in a language according the way that it sounds. For example, in English, when we say he walked, we pronounce the ed like a ta, walked, walked. And when we say jog, we pronounce it a d like jog. Now, when someone acquire English as a foreign language or acquire of foreign language in general, they carry over the rule of phonology of their first language and apply into their second language and language interface. So far, I have been talking about knowledge of language, the rule that go into dividing what a possible sequences of language. But those sequences have to get into the brain during speech comprehension, and they have to get out during speech production and of language interface. And let's start with language production with Mary Rianda.
Mm, Okay, now I will explain you about the language productions. The diagram is literally a human cadaver that has been sawn in half. An anatomist took saw and sound, allowing to see in cross section the human vocal traits. Uh, and that can illustrate how we get out knowledge of language out into the world as a sequence of sound. Each us that have the top of our windpipe or trachea, a complex structure called the larynx or voice box. And then uh, the vibrating sound gets out to the world. It has to pass through a gauntlet of camber of the vocal tracts, the throat behind the throat, the cavity above the throat, the cavity formed by the lips, and a block of airflow through the mouth. It can come out through the nose. And each of the cavity that have a shape, uh, it implies some of the harmonics in the busy sound source and super other. Um, for example, like uh, uh, and ah. So the cavity behind the throat that can change the frequencies apply of suppress and the listener hear them as a two different vowel, uh and ah. Any addition from you guys?
You think not, madam.
Okay, and now we continue to speak comprehensions. Speak comprehension turned out to be an extraordinarily complex computational process, which reminds of every time we interact with a voicemail menu on a telephone or use a dictation on our computer. For example, like using the state-of-the-art speech-to-the-text system dictated the following word into his computer. For example, like we detected that bookstore, but in the screen that show us back to work. And or in another example, like I truly couldn't see, but in the screen that show us a truly good MC. Any addition?
I would
No.
like
Wants
to
to add?
ask Mary.
Yeah.
Steven Pinker said that having more sound options makes language more efficient. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Having more sound
Apa?
options.
Sorry. Apa? What?
Uh, Steve said having more
Huh?
sound options makes
Huh?
language more efficient. Could you
Hmm?
expound that? Could you explain that?
More option.
More sound options make
Uh,
language more efficient.
for example, like
Yeah, English has the most. I think English has the most sound options. A language that has the most sound options in the world. I think it has 41 uh, sounds, if I'm not mistaken.
41.
So in this case, is how can it be? How can English be an efficient language? Because it has more sound options.
One of you who want help me, Bang Fahmi, questions? Farah, maybe?
I think that's the point. That English has many sounds of option. That is why it is used as the global language.
Probably.
Or maybe Kak Nazira, you can add some point.
I'm not really understand what Mr. Fahmi said, so I can give any opinion about that. Sorry.
In this case, what sound option do you mean, Brother Fahmi? Is it the sound like the place of articulation or the dialects or accent?
Of course not place of articulation. Yes, of course. Place of articulations, of course, limited. But English has the most sound options. You can make in English. There are 41 sound sounds in English, if I'm not mistaken, and 11 of them are vowels. So,
Okay.
uh, what I want to say that because of a lot of sounds in English, it makes the language is hard to learn or to speak. It's hard. It's harder than Bahasa Indonesia or Arabic.
Yes, and in English, we also have some words that is same pronunciation and but different meaning, right? And
Mhm.
also sometimes the same words, but we use it in different contexts. That is why it's quite hard to learn English. But um, since the globalization take place in this modern era, and I think English has spread through worldwide. as long as the education and politics and also economies rise up in this world. And what do you think? Why what is it as hard as Arabic to learn English?
Yeah, in my opinion, English is harder than Arabic because we have to learn the complexity of word pronunciation. Different words have different uh, ways of pronunciation. Most of them are not regular ways of pronunciation. So that's why some say English is a unique and a weird language.
I think Sister Liana wants to say something earlier.
No, I just want to repeat that the sound has 44 sounds, right? You mean the phonetic sounds, right, Bang Fahmi?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
they have 44 sounds, yes.
I think that's all for my question uh, related to Mary's explanation.
Okay, and then let's move on to the next topic. Just like Farah said, we have sounds with different meanings. So I think the topic now is talking about pragmatics. Is that true?
Yes,
The
it
next
is
topic?
related. Yes, it is related to grammatic is talk about context of language. So the question is about why do we understand language so much better than computer? Because the only answer is because computer is a machine and we are a human being. We are have mind which able to understand the language of the context. So another definition of pragmatic is the way context can influence our misunderstanding of linguistic utterance. So pragmatic is study how people speak when they both know something and how people understand language in the context of the knowledge of the word, expectation, and about how other speakers communicate. So the most important principle about pragmatic is called the cooperative principle. Namely, you should assume that your conversational partner is working with you to try to get a meaning across truthfully and freely. So according to Steven Pinker, for example, like in this video, in Pinker video, the Pinker show the example about the robot and the human, and it's called Jaime, and the human called Maxwell. And Maxwell talked to Jaime, could you give me a hand? And then because Jaime is a robot, and then she suddenly removed his hand and then give it to Maxwell. So this is the misunderstanding context of pragmatics. But if, for example, like me talk to brother Fahmi, could you give me a hand? For example, like if bro Fahmi know about the context of could you give me a hand? Maybe she would give me a help rather than give his own hand. So in this video, we can give us knowledge about human behavior, human interaction, and human relationship. And we often have to use the background of knowledge, even though to solve mechanic problem like we does pronoun like he referred to. It is that knowledge that extraordinarily difficult to say the program of computer. So therefore, language is miracle of natural word because it is allow us to exchange an unlimited number of idea using finite set of mental tools. Those mental tools comprise a larger lexical or memorized word and powerful mental grammar that can combine them. So in addition, why we should study linguistics? Because language is the most distinctly uh, human talent. Language is a window into human natural of word. Maybe the study of language has many practical of the wonder of natural word. Maybe the study of language have many practical application, including computer that understand and speak, the diagnosis and treatment of language disorder, and teaching of reading, writing, and interpreting, politics, and so forth. But for human being like us, Language is internally fascinating because it speaks so much fundamental question of human condition. So that's all from my explanation about pragmatics and the miracle of language and why we should study linguistics. Okay, I give it back to the moderator.
Okay, anyone to add general argument explanations, or maybe you want to ask questions before we close our discussion? No? Okay, so it's been an interesting discussion. So before we close our discussion, we can conclude that language is a structured system of communication used by humans. And it's important to not to confuse language with written language, proper grammar, and thought. And not to forget that syntax, the study of linguistic structure, phonology, the study of sound, semantics, the study of meaning, and pragmatics, the study of the social and cultural role and content of language, all help us to understand how language works. Then we also talk about Noam Chomsky, about his hypothesis of an innate, hardwired universal grammar as an explanation for language acquisition in children, the open-ended creativity inherent in language and the nature of syntax as separate from content and meaning. The last one is the reason why we need to study linguistics is because language is a window into human nature and it is the center of human life. Thank you very much for your participation and attention. This is the end of our discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Night
Good
to
night.
everyone.
We can leave now.